We got some stuff on the NRA that you are going to love in a minute. First, let me tell you that when America was first founded, you had to carry a gun. You said in some places you would be fined if you didn't have a gun because you had to defend against anything.
Whatever.
Government, could be pirates.
Yeah.
But we don't have any pirates now.
No, not at all.
We have no pirates.
You don't have any lawless people that come in and try to take things that are not there. We don't have gangs. Oh, wait a minute. Gangs in America is now the gangs in America comprise the 6th largest army in the world. The gangs in America are better organized than most of the armies in the world are. They're better armed, they're better equipped, they're better run, they're better financed. No, we don't have pirates to deal with today.
Got it? 6th largest army, the gangs in America. And remember, gang membership in our military, according to Holder, is on the dramatic upswing. So they are well trained.
Yeah.
And some of the gangs that are coming from Mexico were trained by us and our CIA and our elite forces.
These gangs have learned that they send their guys to boot camp, American military, learn how to run it, learn how to organize it, learn how to discipline, come back and impose that on the gang members, and they run the gangs like we run the American military.
If there was let me just ask you this. If there was an economic meltdown and there was chaos, if you were up, because Mercury 1 was up for Hurricane Sandy, and they were on the ground, they had SWAT teams around the gas stations, and that's in the New York area, and that was a short-lived period. If you don't have guns and there's an economic breakdown, and you know that the government's not coming to everywhere because they can't afford to do it all the time, how do you survive against the gangs who are well organized and the 6th largest?
The 2 examples. One is what happened in the Great Depression, because we had the economic meltdown, but we had such a common cultural value. Even atheists lived by the 10 Commandments. Atheists didn't take your wife, they didn't take your property. So everybody had.
That's a great example. That's who he is.
That
atheist
cultural,
of the 30s.
That's right. That cultural influence of, hey, we believe in the Good Samaritan, we believe in the Golden Rule. I'm not religious, but because of that, you had lots of poverty, but not much violence. Well, you had Al Capone and the gangs, but you didn't have the people violence. Then you jump over into Texas. And in Texas, you get no religion. Matter of fact, I have a newspaper ad of the first successful revival in Texas, and I think it was 1848.
You're kidding me.
No, and they said the reason it was a successful revival was it was the first preacher they know of that was not tarred and feathering for preaching in Texas. So that's what they call success. He didn't get run out of town.
Wow.
Now, in Texas, we had the Texas Rangers to enforce law and order because we had gangs, we had violence. My gun's bigger than your gun. I'll take it from you.
You had the Wild West.
We had the Wild West, and that's what Texas was because there was not the moral foundation. And literally with the Texas Rangers, they established order, and then they did law. If they saw people shooting, they'd just shoot both of you and then figure out who was wrong later. The law wasn't the issue. You get order, and then you can bring law, and that's what they believe. And so you bring order first. And that's the rule of the gun. And at that period of time, you had the Speaker of the House who said men and the word must necessarily be controlled either by power within them or power without them, either by the Bible or by the bayonet. We'll beat it into you from the outside with a gun, or you can do it yourself from the inside. And that's the difference in the Great Depression and the Wild West in Texas.
So take me back to the 1800s, because I said this question, I said, were there more guns per capita in this country before the last 10 years?
No question.
Absolutely no question.
43% of Americans now say they own a gun in the house.
Right.
You compare that back then, you're required by law to have a gun, at least one in your house.
And in the 1800s, with all the people that were living, unless you were living in the cities proper, you probably didn't have a gun, but you were likely to have your father's gun.
That's right. Because
that's just the way we were. So everybody grew up with a gun. And they taught you how to use a gun. It was part of school.
That's right.
Right?
Here, I want to read you a couple of quotes.
This is great, because this is going to go into where was there shootings in schools.
Thomas Jefferson has just taken over the education of his nephew. His brother-in-law's died, Peter
Carr.
He's now got Peter Carr. And this is what he says. He said, I want you to give 2 hours of every day to exercise, for health must not be sacrificed to learning. A strong body makes the mind strong. As to the type of exercise, I advise the gun. Wait a minute, 2 hours a day with the gun is what you're telling this 15-year-old kid as part of his education? I want you to be healthy. I want you to exercise 2 hours a day. and the gun needs to be your exercise. Now, here's John Quincy Adams. He is overseas, sent there by President James Madison. He's got 3 kids being raised by his brother Thomas. They're 9, and they're 6, and they're 3. And this is what he writes back. He says, one of the things I wish to have them taught as soon as possible, which no man can teach them better than you, is the management of firearms. The accidents which happen among children arise more frequently from their ignorance rather than their misuse of weapons which they know to be dangerous. He says, I want you to take George, the 9-year-old, out with you in your shooting excursions, teach him to use the musket. I want you to teach him the construction of the musket, the necessity and the prudence of handling the musket, and I want him also to learn the use of pistols and exercise him at firing at marks. Now, that's a typical education for a 9-year-old
and
at
that's
that
not
time.
For hunting.
That's not
for
hunting.
protection.
That's for protection.
Okay.
And then Richard Henry Lee, he says, to preserve liberty, it's essential that the whole body of the people always possess arms and be taught alike, especially when young, how to use them.
Okay, so quickly, you take us into the late 1800s. There are school shootings.
Well, there's attempted shootings.
Yeah, they're not school shootings. Well, the gun's fired, but they're not fired the way we think.
Right. The great example in the 1850s, you have a school teacher who's teaching a guy, and he's out in the West, a guy from New England has been searching for him, wants to kill him and find him. So he comes into school with his gun to shoot the teacher. He decides not to shoot the teacher because all the kids pull their guns out and pointed at him and said, you kill the teacher, you die. He says, okay, teacher lives. Real simple stuff. Saved the life of the, there was no shooting because all the kids, and we're talking in elementary school, all the kids pull their guns out and says, we like our teacher, you shoot our teacher,
and there
we'll
wasn't shooting. Kids did not shoot each other.
Oh, no. Again, 2 accidents I have seen in 200 years of everybody having guns. It just didn't happen.
Okay, so now what I want to do is when we come back, I want to talk to you a little bit about the NRA. We'll do it quickly, talk a little bit about the history of the NRA, because this is really important. And then also, what have other presidents done in situations like this? Very, very interesting. Back in a minute. You know what I found interesting?